Extruder motors not working properly, benchies that feel a little bit squished and under pressure, parts that just keep having shifted layers, and Z-Wobble. All this and more, PrintFix Friday, episode 34. Let's get into it. Hey, thanks again for joining us on PrintFix Friday, the longest running weekly video series all about fixing print fails. Don't forget, if you want to get your fails on the show and have us take a look at them, you can tag us on all the social medias right here, as well as use the hashtags PrintFix. That way we can find it. We got some really awesome fails for you today. We're going to start off with an extruder gear that is twitching and not moving. These ones are always fun to look at. Then we got a benchy that is, well, feeling a little bit squished. And we all know what it's like to be under pressure. Or is it ice, ice, baby? You'll never know until the lyrics start. Then we move into a print being loose and out of shape, and I totally understand this system. Moving forward, we talk about layer shifting and what can cause it, especially when you've tried quite a few options, and good lord, it feels like you've hit a wall of problems. From there, we move into stepper drivers being silent. There really shouldn't be a problem with that. Then we have probably one of the harder ones of the week, which is a Z-Wobble problem that I think you guys will want to stay tuned for, so make sure you watch through the video. And then, of course, we finish it off with a couple of Twitter people hanging out with some blobs of doom, a good friend of the channel, Matt Castiglione, as well as Filament Frenzy, who both suffered some blobs of doom. But you know what isn't a big blob of doom? My segue to our sponsor, 3D Musketeers. If you are struggling with print failures and you are ready to yeet the printer into a low Earth orbit because you are just tired of dealing with the bullshit, call the pros at 3D Musketeers. Not only can we help you walk through your print failure step by step, and yes, I will be happy to go onto a one-on-one call with you and solve those problems if it's only a few minutes. We will also be able to take over the printing for you in the meantime, because we understand that print fails suck. Losing that amount of time sucks, and nobody likes doing it. But what we do like is getting support from all of our viewers. We noticed that upwards of 80% of you guys are not subscribed, and we would greatly appreciate it if you did hit that subscribe button and leave a like if you do think we deserved it. And if not, let me know why in those comments. I'd be curious to how we could earn your subscription. But if you do love what we do here and want to support us as well as other creators, it is the first week of the month, which is the best time to join a Patreon. And ours, patreon.com/3D Musketeers, linked down below, with tiers starting as low as $1 that go to helping make this channel better every single day. I appreciate you guys staying through this call to action. These things help keep the channel moving because, yeah, I have to justify the expenses of editing and my time and all of that. But anyways, let's get fixing those fails. Extruder gear just twitches. I have confirmed it's not the motor by hooking up an unused one to the cable unattached. Let's take a look to see what's going on here. Yeah, we got a motor just kind of wiggling there. One of the best things to check here when you got motors that are wiggling and not moving is, one, that your driver functions. So if you plug in another motor and the problem is still occurring, then we got to look at the wiring and the driver. So take this motor, put it onto another set of wires, run that. Does that work? You're going to want to swap out the wires, verify that that's not the problem either. And if all of that else fails, you go back and you look at the driver, feel the top of the driver. You might have to undo a few things. According to the flare, you've got an Ender 5 Pro. So verify that we don't have any issues with the wiring. And then you're going to want to touch the heat sink that's on the driver to make sure it's not like boiling hot. If it is, you've got a bad driver, or the driver itself is turned up too high. There should be a little potentiometer that you can turn up or down. There are ways to measure driver current. It involves using a multimeter while you're adjusting things. So if you're not comfortable with a multimeter, leave that alone. If you've never adjusted it, then it's probably fine, especially if this did just start happening. Something to note as well is that over time, copper work hardens. So if your extruder wires happen to be moving a lot, chances are the wires have just gotten a little crappy, and in certain locations, it's not allowing the angry pixies to get through and get to where they need to be. So my opinion, check the wiring, verify the motor works. So again, it could be a bad motor as well. I don't think it is. fairly certain it's bad wiring. You can try, if you find that it's a loose connector, to dab some hot glue and other crap on there, but I don't really like the hot glue fix. Wires are pretty cheap, and these are JST connectors that are really cheap to just buy. You can buy cheap crimpers for it and just make new ones if you can't just buy pre-made wires in lengths that you need. Benchy's giving me new problems, guessing it's related to the Z-Rod. Your Benchy squished, bruh, and I'm thinking that you've got some tension, some force, something is up with your Z-axis. If it's untouched, right? I think this is a Neptune 2 or a Neptune 2S because it's got the flex plate, which generally means it's a Neptune, because I don't think any of the Ender printers have this right now. Let's see what the comments say. Coupling may be loose. Yeah, you know, actually, that's a pretty good idea. That's a shame because one of the screws in there is stripped now. I've had this thing for under a week. If it's your fault, buy a new coupler. If it came stripped, get a new printer. Lubing the Z-Rod, probably not. With a printer that is a week old, unless you soaked the entire Z-Rod in acetone to remove all of the oil and grease and stuff from it before you assembled it, it's probably fine. It's honestly most likely just fine. The coupler makes sense, right? If the screw is stripped, it's not going to apply enough force onto it, which would throw us for a, well, maybe it is the coupler. I would try replacing honestly, I'd try replacing the coupler. That is not where I was going to go. I was going to say look for binding, but if you do have a strip screw in your coupler, I mean, that points right to that problem. Do make sure that it does move up and down without any issues. Basically, turn the printer around, tell it to go up 200, and just watch the motor, watch the axis. You can put, like they did in this previous fail, put a little dot on the D part of the shaft of the motor so you can make sure that the motor is spinning, and then put a piece of tape or something on your lead screw, and that'll let you see if they're moving in sync. If they're not moving in sync, well, you've probably got a loose coupler. And if you can hear it clicking like it's trying to move and it's not able to move, you've got some binding, and then you could go ahead and look at your V-wheels. But knowing that you have a stripped screw in your coupler, I would hedge a bet that that's the problem. Good on the commenter for thinking of this. I don't think I would have called that one out, so you're gonna get an upvote from me. Print is loose and out of shape. Same. We've got some stuff going on here. Let's take a look. I'm not the only one that thought this. Relatable. This should be a coin sorter for the Euro. The bad oval shapes you see there are very loose on the base and come off very easily. Quality is very bad too. This should be perfect ovals and not whatever this is. Printed on an Ender 3v2 with a Sprite extruder. It's an upgraded extruder. Sliced in Cura, 0.28 default settings. Filament is Creality white PLA. Could be crappy PLA. Nozzle 200, bed 60. And you all know how I hate white filament because it shows errors that don't exist. No, this is just distinctly a problem. I'm trying to wrap my head around what I'm looking at. It looks like we have like a truncated oval where it's more of a slot shape than it is an actual oval. But I don't know. This looks like this could be your second layer on top of a first layer. Check your first layer. There's way more information needed here. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I present you with reason number one as to why you need to provide more information. I have no friggin' clue what I'm looking at. I understand that it's a sorter for Euros. Great, cool. I'm fine with that, but I don't have a link to the file, if one does exist. I don't have any idea what it's supposed to look like. I don't know what side was printed down, and all of these things are kind of required for us to get a better idea. I'm gonna guess that it's gonna have something to do with your actual first layer, because if that's not laid down right, the rest of this is pretty much a lost cause, all things considered. The other thing to look at is the speed, but if it is a Cura default, it's probably fine. Are you running the new Cura Arachne? Let me know. Of course, we recently covered Cura 5.0 with the new Arachne slicing engine. You guys can take a look at that video in the card. But yeah, I don't know on this one. Let me know what you guys think in those comments. I am very curious to figure out what this is. I'm missing like some pretty key points of information that are mildly frustrating because I don't know the right solution here. What surface is this? It looks like that one. Why am I seeing this side? What side is that? I have a feeling that these ovals are supposed to fit inside of this. If that's the case and they're not printed together, then that's a first layer problem. If they are printed together, then you actually have some separation between your parts and you should have supported it. And without that separation being supported, it's going to end up looking like crap. I'm not 100% sure what the answer is on this one. Let me know what you guys think in those comments. Layer shifts happening in the same areas for the same prints. Help, please. 0 jerk, 80% speed. Same shifts again. This was mostly fine except for one area. Stringing, as well as more issues. This, to me, is the most indicative thing that we're seeing. We can see some pretty serious blobbing. It's all on the inside lines at least, so at least we have that going for us. But we got some stringing and blobbing here occurring. I have a feeling that the printer's running into itself. Let's see what the comments say, but let's start with this. It's a CR10 printing at 200, bed at 38. That's a little cold, but you're not having bed adhesion issues, so meh. Machine is 7 years old. Maybe that's a factor. Probably not. Tighten the belt as well as stepper motor screws. So, all right, we're moving in the right direction. The more complex the shape, the more the shifting happens. Slowing the print speed decreases the severity of the shift, but it doesn't stop it from happening, which would make sense if it is caused by blobbing. The blobbing is still going to occur, but when you're going slower, it might push through it a little bit more rather than getting stuck. Not sure if it's related, but the feeding screw sometimes snaps back during printing. Yes, that is an issue. I changed both acceleration and jerk settings. It isn't doing much. It's probably not going to. I've been suggested that the motor may be too weak, but changing the acceleration didn't seem to help, so I'd love some more opinions. I don't think this is it. Let's see what we got here. If the machine is 7 years old, you should have lubricated it a couple of times over the years. Make sure the lead screw and screws move with very little resistance and smoothly. That's what I would check too. I'm not so keen about the lubrication. These are all V-wheels, right? Unless it's covered in dirt. Really, the only thing that needs to be lubed here is the Z-axis. The V-wheels are made of Delrin, or acetyl acid, and that's a self-lubricating plastic, so you don't have to worry about that too much. Although checking to make sure there's no crap in the rails will probably help. I agree here that we've got some indications of some back pressure issues. So when you are detracting, you want to do that really slowly. When you retract, pull it out as quickly as you can. 65, 70 millimeters a second should be fine. When you're pushing it back in, slow. 25, 30 millimeters a second, less if you're okay with waiting the time. When you're dealing with extruder clicking, you're not putting enough filament into it. There's too much back pressure. You've got some issues in your motion path that are causing the clicking to occur. That's bad. If it is indeed the filament, I don't think it is, but it might be worthwhile to dry it in case it absorbs moisture. It's not moisture. You were on a roll and you lost me here. This is not right. I don't think that's it. Yes, technically stringing can be caused by a little bit of excess moisture, but the fact that it's PLA does not see a lot of stringing from moisture. It just starts to string when you don't have enough retraction or you're printing it too hot. And 200 is not, generally speaking, too hot. For playing with acceleration and jerk, the calibration guide by Teaching Tech, we'll card to that video so you guys can see it. Is fantastic, definitely recommend it. I've never checked that out, but you shouldn't have to mess with acceleration and jerk, and I agree here, the motor being too weak is very unlikely. This is good. We got some good back and forth between the original poster, whose cake day it is today. Happy anniversary for Reddit. But this is good, right? We've got a lot of good questions here, right? And I like this. We got a good response. My recommendation here would be that we look at adding some Z-hop. We can look at tuning the extrusion, look at tuning the retraction, but immediately Z-hop is probably going to solve a lot of these problems. And then look at probably adding some extra retraction and then slowing down that detraction when you're putting the filament back into the hot end, right? Remember, retraction is pulling out of your hot end, detraction is pulling it back in, or de-retraction. You can call it whatever you want. I think if we can get those handled, we'll be kind of moving in the right direction. That's really the goal here. Why does my stepper driver TMC2208 or motor sound weak and then so quiet? Let's take a listen. This is normal. This is totally normal. Why is it quiet? Because it's a TMC 2208 and it's a damn good stepper driver. No problems here. Let's be real. If the printer is printing fine, you've got no issues. It's fine. I will point out that you're running a cooler for a V6. when you have a volcano hot end on there. So look at adjusting to a new cooler. That should give you better part cooling. But yeah, I mean, it looks like it's printing just fine. So no problem here. Help! How to fix Z-Rod wobble. Please see video for wobble. Ignore the dirt and scuffed vid. Okay, well, let's take a look here. I can't really ignore dirt, but... oh, yeah. That's real wobbly. Let's take a look at this side. Oh, yeah, you can see it. Pretty clear Z-wobble. All right, this one's easy. Replace your Z-axis. Replace that lead screw. You can check to attempt to reseat it into the coupler, but if you want, just loosen the coupler, pull the entire lead screw out, and roll it across a smooth surface. Preferably like a glass table, granite countertop, something that we know is kind of reasonably flat, and see if it skips around. Let's see what the comments say. Wobble at the top is normal. No, it's not normal. You should not have Z-wobble like that. That is not correct. I'm not agreeing with these commenters here. Yeah, we have one side that's totally fine and the other side is wobbling quite a bit. We can see clear Z-banding here. I would look at checking the tightness of your V-wheels. There's an eccentric nut. We talked about it in the Ender 3 maintenance video. We'll card to it so you guys can take a look. But I would look at checking that. You basically want to tighten it to the point where when the axis is moving up and down, if you hold the wheel, it will struggle to move. You want it to be tight, but not too tight. If it's too tight, you're going to put way too much tension onto the aluminum profiles. You're going to wear out the wheels and probably add excess wear to your stepper motors. This is definitely rough. The wobbling, I think, is an issue. I'm fairly certain it is that issue. I would definitely look at checking your Z lead screw. However, I have also seen this in our Lulzbot Taz 6. We had an old Taz 6, one of the first 100 to make it off the production line and into the hands of users. And hilariously, Lulzbot actually was using Bang Bang rather than PID. Bang Bang is on, off, on, off. PID basically fluctuates on and off very, very quickly to get a percentage of on, whether that's 70%, 50%, 60%. But what was occurring is that as the heat bed was turning on and off, it was flexing, causing lines like this in the prints. But yeah, that was a fun one. I would check to make sure you are running PID. I would assume you are. It just doesn't look like an old printer. It looks like an Ender 3v2. Although, no. It's Anycubic, so this is probably a Viper. My assumption is it's going to be a Viper. We got a filament runout sensor, the extruder, the Bowden tube. I saw the cover and I think, that's Anycubic, and very clearly it says Anycubic right there. Yeah, it's not normal, and your frame should not be compensating for wobble. You shouldn't have wobble. If your frame is compensating for that kind of stuff, you've got another problem to be worried about. I'm fairly certain it's the Z lead screw. That's my personal opinion. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. I'm fairly certain that's a bad lead screw. There's plenty of things it could be. Matt over on Twitter, will link to him. He said, thanks for the video on our previous Printfix Friday. By the way, thanks. He had his own nightmare of a blob of doom. Look at that. And unfortunately, the heater and or the thermistor did not survive. In cases like this, I always say grab a heat gun and pray. You can put a new heater cartridge, you can put a new thermistor in, but boy howdy would this suck. Honestly, if you've got the spare cash laying around and you don't care all that much, just replace the hot end. Like, God, this is a rough one. Because not only, and you had a silicone sock, so like, you tried. But the hot end's like, nah, we're just going to push that off. We had a similar issue on our time-lapse printer that we talked about last week. But yep, been there before. How do you solve these? Man, there's really no way. You got to make sure that you watch your first layer, make sure that it looks like it's going to stick down there, and periodically check on the printer. If you're not confident with the printer's abilities to print, throw a webcam on there or a Wise cam. We'll link to some down in the description so you can take a look. Then you can just monitor it remotely. And as we've said before, if you do see it going nuclear, you can always use a smart plug to turn off the printer and then turn it back on to let it cool itself down before it turns into a big blob of doom like we see here. And speaking of blobs of doom, we got my buddy Filament Frenzy here, who's had a birthday earlier this week. Happy birthday, my dude. I actually think it's on the day that we're recording, so happy birthday. And yep, he had a rough one too. Let's take a look at this fail. I also love how Pooch is the final meltdown song when Pooch had a E3DV6 that melted on him. That was pretty crazy. We never covered that as a failure. This is like a Mark III style printer, I think, because this is not the same fan shroud they use anymore. But you can see how rough that break was. It actually broke the fan shroud off. This is it's a tough break, man. Been there just recently myself. In cases like this, heat that bastard up. And Tom, why? I mean, you might have a silicone sock on there, but I don't see one. It could be fully encapsulated. But if you don't have one, dude, it's cheap insurance. Very, very easy things to change on there. We'll link to some in the description if you guys are looking to buy some. Silicone socks are cheap insurance and make blobs of doom considerably less work. But it looks like he had an okay first layer. I don't see anything that would be a cause for concern there. We got a little bit of a bent part here. It doesn't do anything on the Mark III's, although this is a Mark III/Mark III's. I don't know which this is, but this little piece doesn't do anything, so you can just break it off. It's totally fine. Rest of the extruder looks clean. The pin to probe looks like it survived, so no dice. Silicone socks are going to be a great way, but again, cameras, smart plugs, all of these things will reduce the damage that these blobs of doom cause. They won't stop them from happening ever, but they'll definitely reduce the problem. So yeah, if you guys don't follow Filament Frenzy, give this guy a follow. The stuff that he does is like insane. It is his birthday. See? That's cool. He does a lot of really, really cool parts. Let's see if we can find some. This is Vedran's favorite piece from a couple of years back. Look at that MMU part. Real beautiful. And more recently, it looks like he might be getting one of these fun printers from Prusa. Hey, Joe, if you got any more of those laying around, I'd like one. I've got a very particular
set of skills
use case for something like this, and we should talk about it. It'd be a lot of fun. I could do it on a belt printer, but a really big Delta would be a way cooler option, in my personal opinion. But yeah, Filament Frenzy is an awesome supporter of the community. He retweets basically everything that content creators do. He loves supporting this community. And I mean, geez, look at these prints, the colors, the pictures. Dude, A+ work. You know, that's all I gotta say. Quality guy, quality product. I've spoken with him a few times. Highly recommend it. Speaking of highly recommended, I highly recommend that you like this video. If you think we deserved it, drop us a subscribe as well. That's all I got for you guys today. Let me know down in those comments what you think of these failures. Don't forget to tag us on all the social medias so we can help take a look at your fails and make you fail just a little bit less. But that's all I got for you guys today. Stay safe out there. Don't forget to call your loved ones. Mother's Day is Sunday. I can tell you so many times and you're probably still gonna forget. Go print a tulip or something because your dumbass probably forgot. And as always, keep making awesome. Have a good one. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video, and a massive thank you goes out to all of our Patreon and YouTube channel member supporters whose names are listed right next to me at the $5 tier and higher. They're scrolling now. It's fun. If you want to help out what we do here on the channel, you can do so by joining our Patreon for as low as $1 a month. Links will be in the description down below. But if you're looking for something else to watch, make sure you check out the rest of the Print Fix Friday series listed right below me. And right next to that will be the printer maintenance series. I'll see you guys down in those comments, and in the next one, take care.